Hi, my name is Michelle Sheppard, a radio personality from Joy FM and founder of LGBTI Jobs.
And I'm Bronte Price. I'm a registered civil marriage celebrant and also a part-time newsreader on Joy 94.9.
Now, Bronte, one of the things I really enjoyed about our last conversation was just listening to some the details around marriage itself. And it got me thinking that we really don't share much of our stories these days with each other. And I was thinking that there's so much about us as people that we're actually very similar. You as a gay man and me as a trans woman. We have very similar paths. Now, we've both been married twice.
We have.
Doing the Celebrant stuff, you'd have to have a bit of a faith about yourself as it is. And I would also, something I don't talk very much, is that I actually had a background being a youth minister at one point in my previous life in a land far, far away. So I was thinking about marriage and how there's all these traditional sort of things. There's such old world things we do. They're so gendered. And I'm sure some things will pop into your mind immediately after doing some weddings recently yourself.
So the wedding industry and weddings are highly heteronormative, highly gendered, as you said, Michelle. So we have a bride and a bridegroom. We have a page boy and a flower girl. We have groomsmen and we have bridesmaids and so on. One of the traditions that happens in a traditional straight wedding is we have a bride who begins to walk down this long aisle, often accompanied by a male, and the male at the end of that hands this young woman over to another male who she's going to be with for life.
Handover of property, really.
And that's where it came from. It was about protecting assets. That's how marriage originally began way back then.
Usually involving like chickens and goats and, 3
indeed,
camels.
and property. Yeah. And so one of the things that excites me about LGBTI weddings is that we don't have to do that. We don't live that way. We don't live at home in gendered roles. And so why would we want to employ those on our wedding day, a really important day in our lives?
Exactly. I mean, look, I myself being a groom twice in my life, right? My first marriage was about 4 years. My second one was for about 12. I mean, now I wouldn't necessarily see myself as the bride in white. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I don't think there's gonna be any white involved for me. But I just don't see myself as the bride in a bride's gown being handed over by somebody. So, like, if you saw two same-sex women getting married, what are some of the things that you'd see in there that'd be different?
So one of the things that we need to start challenging is some of the assumptions that wedding suppliers have. And so if, for example, two women go into a formal wear store to have a look at whether it's suits or whether it's dresses for a wedding, sometimes I'll get asked, which of you is, so you must be the matron of honour and you must be the bride, or you must be the bride and you must be the mother of the bride. My partner is quite a bit younger than I, and I would, I'm ready for the day when I go in and say, so you must be the groom and you must be the father of the groom. Or it could be brother, of the groom if the groom's at the same age-ish. And so we need to start challenging, I think, what those assumptions are, but we also need to start educating wedding suppliers in particular around what is appropriate language and what some of those are. You can't make those assumptions.
No, there isn't, because, I've even had situations where I've gone in and I still get sirs all the time, and I'm going, have you seen me? Yeah, so are there ways to address, say, the bride and the groom so differently now? And
I think that the key question... the key thing to do is ask the question.
Yeah.
And so instead of assuming that there's going to be a bride and a groom, there may not be, ask the question. So what are you going to refer to yourselves as? Okay. And they'll say possibly wives. They might say brides, or no, I'm going to be the bride and he's going to be the groom, whatever.
I'm the ball, she's the chain.
That's it. And use their language. So ask them rather than assume what the language is.
And it's okay to ask. And that's why I say to people,
it's really helpful.
Even within the transgender community, it's like, it's very helpful. It's very important. Just ask the question.
And it helps all of us come out, because otherwise every wedding supplier we face, and there's a whole range of them, as you can imagine, we're always going to ask, are you okay or have you had experience in working with same-sex couples or people from the LGBTI community? So if they ask, and they're educated to ask right up front,
Yeah.
in a way that's understanding, it helps build that trust and gives people from our community the understanding that this is okay to work with these people.
How long have you been actually running and conducting these ceremonies?
2.5 years. And one of the things that I'm very pleased about is that earlier this year I was voted one of Victoria's top celebrants by the brides I'd married. So that was great. Part of my commitment, though, is to try and make LGBTI couples experience, a safe, trustworthy kind of day for them, and in the time leading up. So we start learning how to play with the wedding ceremony, if you will. Yeah. So there's quite a possibility. So instead of a bride walking down to the groom, that may not exist in such a ceremony, perhaps they both want to walk down with their bridal party or their wedding party at the same time. Or they might want to walk down at the same time down an outside aisle at the same time.
So now you're giving me so many ideas now here, Bronte.
Or they might want to come together from different directions and meet in the middle, that sort of stuff. So from the very outset of a ceremony, we can play with the choreography, who moves where, who says what when. And, one of the things that I've accumulated is a range of readings from gay and lesbian writers, for example, which can be used rather than the traditional kind of straight readings that we all know and love.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, because a lot of the traditional ones would be more religious-based as well.
Yeah, sometimes not. But they've been written by usually straight people. And so one of the things that we can offer, I think, people from our community is some ownership of the ceremony. So all of the components of the ceremony, I think, can be challenged, can be amended, can be changed through this thing I call play. And it's just like the only part eventually when marriage equality occurs that we have to adhere to is the legals, and we'll take that very seriously. But all the rest of it is up to us to
just
create.
A bit more variety, a bit more color, just a bit more everything. Thank you for breaking this down a bit further for me. I just love the trying to bring a new world spin on such an old world thing.
And trying to educate people that it doesn't have to be heteronormative.
Yeah.
That there is a different reality. No one else is going to create that for us, though. No. We've got to create that ourselves with our couples.
And I think it's more conversations like this between two different areas of our subgroups and subcommittees of the groups, of just sitting together like this. Two people seem like two worlds apart, but we're not very much different than each other.
One of the key components for me of any wedding ceremony is their love story, is the couple's love story. And this is the one time when you get to tell everyone at that ceremony about your love story, because they'll all know little bits, but they won't know the whole lot. And so that particularly applies to people from our community because their story is sometimes a really hard story. Yeah. And it's a sign of, it's a story filled with lots of love, obviously, but lots of struggle too. And so here's a perfect platform to tell that story. And you and I spoke earlier about the importance of story and the importance of, even though you're a trans woman, I'm a gay man, parts of our stories are very similar.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Bronte, for coming and having a
Michelle.
chat. My name is Michelle Sheppard. Thank you for watching.